Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about PlayStation 5, Nintendo DS, Kevin Costner's Waterworld, and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about the PlayStation 5, and good news is that the PS5 has been jailbroken. Bad news is that it only applies to version 4.03. So Spectre tweeted out their GitHub showing off the exploit, and they also said be warned, stability is not great and it's something to be improved on for sure. And if we head on over to the GitHub, there are a ton of limitations. This exploit achieves read and write but not code execution. This exploit also cannot install any patches or hooks into the kernel space, which means no homebrew related code for the time being. So at this point in time, while the PS5 has technically been hacked, it's still extremely early on in development, and a lot of stuff still has to happen before we get a PS5 emulator, or before we can jailbreak a PS5 and possibly run custom stuff on it. Interestingly enough though, in a really positive note, Lance McDonald was able to hack their PS5 with this method. Access the debug menu and install Resident Evil PT, the cancelled PS4 demo, on their PS5. Now, while they could install it, they couldn't run it. It still didn't work. It's still gonna be a while before we can get stuff like this up and running on our PS5s. And that is assuming you have a PS5 and you've been able to find one, and you're also running firmware 4.03. If you're not, you're gonna have to be patient, not only to pick up a PS5, but also for this jailbreaking to be in a relatively stable and working state. Either way, I think this is great news, and if you weren't a believer before, I'm pretty sure the writing is on the wall now for hacking and homebrews on the PS5. It's really just a matter of when as opposed to if. And speaking about homebrews, next up here we're talking about Kevin Costner's Waterworld. If you're a Simpsons fan, you may or may not recognize this game from a certain episode for a very short period of time. Macaw45 on Twitter has created a freeware PC game that releases on October 9th or October 8th if you're in North America. I'm pretty sure I'll cover it then as well. They state the game is a full adventure directly based on how it looked during its brief appearance in The Simpsons, but expanded here to be a real game with fleshed out mechanics, multiple stages, boss fights, and a huge quantity of secrets for extra replayability. So fun fact, this game will have a lot more content in real life than it did in The Simpsons, and I'm really looking forward to it. Next up, we're talking about Nintendo DS emulation on Android with MelonDS, just not the version that's on the Google Play Store. The most recent version of MelonDS on Google Play is from November of 2021, almost a full year ago. However, there are many more recent versions available on GitHub, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. So to pick up the latest version of MelonDS on GitHub, you will have to have a GitHub account. Once you're on the GitHub site, click on Actions, and you can see a bunch of different versions. For example, one version of MelonDS for Android updates MelonDS to 0.9.4. And you can click on the latest one here, which was uploaded 2 days ago. Now these are extremely experimental builds, but so is the Google Play Store version. So if you're into MelonDS, you might want to check this out. Moving on, and we're still talking about Nintendo DS, but with one of the best named emulators out there, NooDS. So NooDS just got a brand new update. The rolling release of NooDS was just updated a few hours ago. It's available for Android, Linux, Mac, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation Vita, and Windows. And just like MelonDS, NooDS is free, it's open source, and I'll leave a link to the GitHub in the description below. The latest update of NooDS adds in some minor optimization. Next up, I've got a quick one for you. We're talking about arcade emulation, specifically Laserdisc emulation with Hypseus Singe. Hypseus Singe is a fork of Daphne. It's free, it's open source, it's available on GitHub. So Hypseus or Hypseus, or however you want to pronounce it, Singe version 2.10.1 has just released. In this release, we've got some minor improvements, some bug fixes, and also some optimizations. Now, Hypseus Singe is available for a whole bunch of different platforms, including the Raspberry Pi. If you are using this emulator, I do recommend picking up the latest version. Next up, we're quickly talking about Nintendo, and it appears that Nintendo has launched their brand new animation studio called Nintendo Pictures. but it's not necessarily a new studio. It's basically just a rebrand of Dynamo Pictures, the Japanese studio that Nintendo said they were purchasing back in July. So if you are curious about this and possibly wanted to read up a bit more, I'll drop a link to that article as well as to the Anime News Network in the description below. On the Anime News Network, you can check out everything that the Dynamo Pictures was involved in. Truth be told, I'm curious to see where Nintendo takes this, but it appears that it's a little bit away from live action, which I will not be complaining about. Next up, we're talking about ArkOS, and if you've got an Anbernic device, specifically the 353V or the 353VS, well, you're gonna like this news. ArkOS version 2.0, the initial stable release, is now available for those devices. You can pick it up from the Retro Handhelds Discord, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. And speaking about Anbernic, if you're on the Retro Handhelds Discord, you can also check out photos of the brand new Anbernic Mini. This one is supposed to rival the Mii Mini. It's going to be a little bit bigger though. It will have a bigger screen, and here are the latest photos of it. I think it's looking pretty good. Here's a quick comparison of this new Anbernic device beside the 353, which just came out, and here it is beside the Mii Mini. You can see it's a little bit bigger than the Mini, but anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Let me know your thoughts on anything we talked about today in the comments below, and like always, we talked about quite a bit. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.